a great amount of feedback is there for you. So students, I encourage you to take the most of this opportunity. Work in the room, talk to as many people as you can. You'll get constructive feedback and advice on your portfolios, and this event is all about you, so take advantage of it. To the professionals for giving up your Saturday mornings, thank you. And I think that working at Curtin these last few years, I have been incredibly inspired by many of the students, and I think that today you will get as much back as you give. So I'm going to hand over shortly to Miriam and Glenn. They're going to do a short sort of presentation, but before that, help yourself. There's a coffee cart down the road. Make sure you take advantage of that. And yeah, I just want you to have fun. It's a very informal event, and thanks again for coming. So Miriam Terry from State 28 Interiors and Glenn Russell from JCY AGDA are going to do a quick presentation, and then we'll start the review. So, welcome.
Is this on? Is this on?
Yes.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Thank you, Gillian. I really appreciate the introduction.
Look, this is a very informal presentation, and it's not specific, I think, to any. Well, it's more an observation, I guess. That we've selected a number of presentations here from interiors, from graphic design, architecture as well, just as a bit of a background to the sorts of work that I guess all of you are sort of going through that process at the moment. And look, the conversation, it's more of a conversation, I suppose, this morning from us, which is, or an observation of the sorts of students and the sorts of work that we see coming through our industry. I work as an architect, designing buildings, but we also do interiors, and obviously Miriam is working with, probably more specific to do with interiors. We've never collaborated together in projects, but you know, I think we both sort of see very similar sorts of work coming through. And
we talk about a lot of projects together, which is collaborating.
Usually over a glass of wine or something like that, which is probably the best way to do it. So look, I mean, just a number of things that we've sort of broken it down, a number of things that we observe coming through the work, which we think is very important in terms of showing your skill set. And you know, we in our own industry, obviously, we have very controlled sort of methods of providing, you know, layout and design, and you know, we have a number of people within our industry, within our practices, which have various different sort of skill sets and so on, which, you know, we rely on in a number of ways, either through hand drawing, computer-aided design, you know, rendering. We have documentation teams and so on, and some of those are people who have been in the industry for many years and have an incredible sort of amount of refinement in terms of their skill set and their ability. But I guess with all of you guys sort of going now into the industry, it's always good to have, you know, a fairly broad spectrum of all of these. So look, I mean, we'll just run through a few little folios in the background, and maybe you want to jump in as well, Miriam, on any of these, which is sort of, this one here is to do with sort of interior design.
Yeah, I think, look, obviously, when we're looking at, every employer looks at portfolios from a different perspective, and I think that potentially making sure that you take advantage of layouts and sort of creating the best sort of opportunities to demonstrate your thought process and how it is that you come about your sort of conceptual ideas. Layout is obviously really, really important, and you know, it's one of those things that you really need to make sure that you sort of focus on and sort of, you know, make opportunities to present your concepts and your ideas in a way that is really easily understood, because obviously when you're presenting to clients, these aren't people that actually understand and come from the same thought process and educational background as you, so therefore you need to make sure that your layouts are presented in such a way that it can really be immediately sort of enjoyed and taken advantage of all of the different things that you have put forward into that presentation. Excuse me.
And in terms of design process, I think you know, the internet has changed our industry considerably. There's you know, the resources that are available to us now in terms of understanding materials, understanding their properties, and also understanding I guess how far you can push some of those materials is you know, is so readily available to us that, you know, that's a very important part, I think, in terms of part of that design process is actually that you're selecting materials based on the properties and the opportunities that you have to use that material and push it. I guess you know, we're constantly researching new materials, and in part of our design process in our practice is that, you know, for every project that we're doing, we are exploring you know, and furthering our opportunities and furthering our knowledge of materials out there, because that's constantly changing as well. And I think it's always good in this industry is actually to keep ahead of that.
Yeah. I agree wholeheartedly with that. I think one of the things that you sort of, like, we look at a floor plan like this, and it's all about I guess when you create your portfolio, you really want to ensure that the prospective employer, and as I say, the audience that is looking at it and viewing it, is ensuring that that the concept that you have in your mind is actually represented really beautifully on paper. And so I think that you have to make sure that you think about how you lay it out, how it's really sort of how you reflect that in the design of it, so that it actually can be really accommodated and really enjoyed by the viewer. And then obviously that idea is then ultimately, you know, put into play. So, but I think yeah, I'd like to sort of go through, these are the sort of areas, these are some of the Revit renderings, and I think renderings are really, really important, because obviously these are skill sets now that are almost, without doubt, absolutely sort of required by clients. A lot of clients, when we put forward sketch plans and things like that, they really want to see it as a render. They don't actually want to see it as a sketch plan because they can't actually visualise it. So I think that it's really important that you present that in your portfolio, and that is a skill set that you definitely try and work towards having a level of achievement and qualification around.
And I think added to that is in the presentation. I mean, and rendering, not everyone is proficient at that. It's a very unique skill, which with computers now, and most of you actually working on computers more than doing hand drawings these days. That it's actually still a style of presentation that we use quite a bit in our practice.
I actually really liked it from a client.
I think because it loosens it up a little bit, it actually makes it a little bit more approachable to a client. It also, in some ways, it doesn't actually give a final kind of outcome. You know, sometimes I think the computer-aided renders can be a bit of a disadvantage in the sense that it actually almost becomes a finished product. It doesn't actually allow a little bit of space in there for refinement through that construction process or through that or through further development. So I think what's the sorts of styles or the sorts of presentation techniques, you need to be sort of fairly conscious or fairly careful about the type of one and actually find the appropriate one for your particular client.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. And I think what's really interesting is that there's something really beautiful when you're sitting down with a client and if you are capable of hand sketching really, really beautifully, is that in actuality what happens in those situations, if the client sort of speaks to a concept or an idea about the space that you're working in, whether it's a retail, whether it's a commercial workspace, and you start to hand sketch that in front of them, it's almost as though they feel as though they have a sense of involvement in what it is that you're actually designing for them. So that skill set and the ability to be able to communicate and draw together with a client, I often find actually has a really quite powerful response in a sort of briefing situation. So for me, I think that we definitely sort of really like to enjoy that, and we have there's a particular designer in our office who's actually really phenomenal at hand sketching, and she does it for clients, she does it on Friday night at the pub as well. She likes to sketch everybody and everything, but it's actually really, really great emotional and connectivity, because I think that, you know, design is often from a client perspective, and I come from a non-design background. I'm not an actual classically trained designer, so for me, when I'm in a room with a designer of mine and with a client of mine, I like to enjoy the process of having that perspective and bringing those two people together. And I think that it's really great to be able to show a skill set in front of a client, and as an employer, for me, that's something that I really look for in my employees, is someone who's capable of being able to translate their ideas quite literally in those moments and in those sort of transactions with clients, and sitting down and having collaborative opportunities.
And I think that works across all disciplines. You know,
Yeah.
it's interior design, graphic design, like we see here, or architecture. You know, it's finding a method of communication that you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. And I think it sort of shows in the sorts of work that people do, that you know, I run a studio doing architecture at UWA for fourth year students, and there's a number of students there who, you know, are just pushing themselves into using a particular method of presentation that they're not comfortable with, and you can sort of see it in the sorts of work that they present. So I think it's, you know, it's important in your industry is that, you know, we can't all draw, we can't all use computers. I mean, I know where my on and off buttons on my computer, and that's about it. But, you know, I do have the ability to sort of draw by hand. So, you know, I think it's sort of, you know, moving into the areas that you feel comfortable with, and you find that there's, you know, there's always support of other people around. It's we don't always, I mean, a few people do it, work as sort of individuals, but more often than not, you know, you're working in a team. There's other people there supporting you, and, you know, for final presentation. So I think it's important to sort of know your limits as well as part of the sorts of work that you do.
I think that's a really, really valuable contribution, because I think, yeah, when you're working, I often hear when I talk to students about you know, scopes that they do within their degrees that are around individual work design and then collaborative design with other students, and how, you know, there's the different reactions between those sort of relationships. And then of course you get into the workforce, and there's the hierarchy of the office, there's the client, there's the design, and you're all having to work together. So I think being able to speak to your strengths and knowing what they are whilst looking at your opportunities is again, it's a really great advantage to know yourself really well and follow that instinct. Because if you don't follow your instincts with relation to design, I think you're denying what it is that makes you unique and what makes you special as a designer, instead of focusing on what doesn't actually naturally sort of work for you. So I definitely would say that making sure that you follow instinctively on what it is that you're doing, as long as it's within the parameters of the scope and the idea, then it's a really great idea to work around that.
Just on one of the first points that I mentioned about sort of, I guess, understanding materials, and that, I mean, that sort of leads on also to sort of understanding product knowledge, and that sort of the idea of research is, I think, you know, I mean, the beautiful thing about creative industry is that we, you know, a lot of our answers and a lot of the solutions to our design process is actually out there. It's already, more often than not, it's already been done. And I think, you know, the best part that I find, you know, personally myself as well, is actually being observant of your surroundings. I mean, there are things, you know, when you sit on on a chair that's, quite beautiful, turn the thing over, have a look, see how it's actually all assembled, because, someone's actually been through a process that we all go through, and that process is, it's there, and you can actually sort of see it in front of you, and it's tactile, and all the solutions are all around you, in everything that we touch and we see, in terms of how things are constructed. So I think, a lot of the answers that we're all asking are right there in front of us. So, I think be observant, be observant with everything you do when you go out and you see something that's really nice. Try and understand how it goes together. It's all part of that research, and I think that's with anything that we do in terms of our creative industry, is that there's that, there's, like I say, there's that ability to sort of share knowledge.
Yeah, from a portfolio point of view, I think being able to in some way represent that in your portfolio, your understanding of construction, and taking advantage of that knowledge and immersing yourself in that as an opportunity is such a major advantage, because in my experience, in my practice, that a lot of graduates come and they understand conceptualisation of ideas and putting projects together, but there's very little often, and I say this as a great sort of global sort of picture versus individuals, but there's often a lack of understanding of, yes, how something is actually constructed in real world, and actually the point of view of the actual cost of it. Because the great thing in college is that you actually get to design things with budgets that have no sense of reality, and then you join the workforce and the reality of the budgets are that you actually are really challenged. So your knowledge of materiality and being able to present that in your portfolio as an employer, from my point of view, is something that I think is a really big advantage, because we all have commercial obligations, and as a student I think that it's your responsibility to do research and go to studios, go to a cabinet shop, go to a furniture manufacturer and see how things are made and understand the commercial viability. Ash and I actually attended the Milan Salone this year, and we were talking with an Italian furniture manufacturer that makes beautiful, beautiful wood furniture, Mazziazzi. And we were talking to Sam Hesh, the designer, and he was walking us through the process of being able to design a piece of furniture around the cost of it. And certain elements of the piece of furniture were actually handmade and certain elements of it were machine made. And it actually spoke to the cost of the outcome of the product and therefore the viability of it. And as designers, understanding how that construction works and applying that in your projects is of a huge advantage, in that knowledge and experience. And it's something that you can actually access right now. It's not something you have to wait till you're in the industry. So yeah, you to look at a product, and if it was all hand manufactured, it would be an $800 piece of furniture. But if it's partially machine made and partially handmade, there's an opportunity to create a more commercially viable product, which in essence, if you talk about that as a chair, that's appropriate, but then when you think about that as an overall project, that's also extremely important and interesting to understand and accept that when you do walk into the industry, that those are the kind of limitations that you're going to come up against, and your design credentials and experience around that are going to be necessary to be successful.
It's actually, a beautiful process as well.
It is. It's so interesting.
Think back about some of the the famous architects and some of the most beautiful pieces of interior design that they've done, and a part of that process has actually been having a collaborative association with someone who understands how pieces of metal go together, or how wood goes together, and what. So they understand the material, and the person has the designer has the idea, and then there's this beautiful sort of dialogue that exists between the two to make that collaboration and make that process happen. So.
Yeah, because I think in our experience anyway, when we've spoken with furniture manufacturers, a lot of them actually come from backgrounds that they're not designers. They really insist on being called curators. So I think knowing that in industry there are curators, there are designers, and that is all about collaboration.
Well, I think that's probably it. You're
Right.
a bit like.
I've got a game for you today though. Because I come from a very non-traditional design background, and so therefore a lot of what we do in our practice is about making sure that life is as enjoyable when you do the work that you're doing, and it's an emotional connectivity. So, does everybody in the room have a notebook or a piece of paper with them today? And if you don't, hold your hand up and we'll try and figure out where we can rip some from someone else.
Steal one from me.
Steal one from your neighbour. We need a piece of paper. Only needs to be like a small A5 size sheet. Oh, yeah, please. Yeah, got one. Oh, nice! Someone else? Yeah. Alright, so everybody got a piece of paper? Yes? That's a yes? Yes. Alright, okay. Rusty's stepping away from this because I don't want to embarrass him as a professional in our industry, but I am comfortable with embarrassing myself. So in our office, whenever we have two things that we do, but I was told that one of my ideas was a little too wacky, so I'm not going to introduce that today. But one of the things we do in our office when we are low on energy and we're trying to find ways to break through creative problem solving, we play a game called Mr. Squiggle. But I don't know if most of you are too young to know who Mr. Squiggle is, but I am not. And so what we do is take a piece of paper and I want you to put 3 lines, squiggles, objects on your piece of paper on right now. So everybody go ahead, do 3 little lines on your piece of paper. Lines, circles, squares, triangles, whatever you want to do. What? Oh, Rusty wants to do it as well. Of course he does. Competitive. Competition is healthy. All right, have you done it? Is everybody ready? Okay, so swap the piece of paper with the person next to you or around you. All right. All right. So that's everybody got a piece of paper. Okay, it's now your job to create a magnificent design masterpiece with what you have been given. And just because I'm a spirit of commercial focus, there is a lovely prize on the line today. And there's a couple of fabulous moleskin notebooks. So we've got 2 prize winners today. So go ahead and sketch me up something fabulous. And Gillian and Ash are going to be the judges today of the best squiggler. And you've got 3 minutes. This is officially the interview process at State 28. I'm joking. Woo. See, we're at the halfway mark. Nerves, tension. I'm not going to show off, but Glenn's already finished his. All right, things are starting to come to a close. Glenn, would you do? I'll come around and collect. Just make sure you put your name on the piece of paper, otherwise, you know, it'll be a tragedy if you miss it out.
Okay, Martha.
Yeah, exactly.
That was folded over for my eyes only. It's got work for you, Ash. So what I'm going to do, because there's a lot of information to look at there, I'm going to hand over to my gorgeous colleague Ashley Elliott, and she's going to talk to you about emerging designers. And when we come to the end today, we'll announce our winner, because I don't want to make too fast of a random decision. So, the delightful Ashley Elliott.
Hi. I just wanted 2 minutes of your time today. I have one slide. Emerging designers, I'm not sure if anyone in the room has heard about it, but it is a community of people. They have it in, I think, every other state. They have it in Melbourne. I think they might have a similar one in Brisbane and in New South Wales. But it's basically, it's a community, or it's an organisation that tries to provide current students and recent graduates with just events and resources and opportunities for bringing you into the workforce, basically trying to get create different events that would be a collaboration between different students and professionals, and just basically to try and give you a better understanding of the design profession, and yeah, just basically it facilitates these networking events. So I did one in Melbourne a couple of years ago when I first graduated uni, and it was basically what we did. We went into a room, there was groups of 3, you could go with your friends or you could go with random people, and they gave us a design brief, and I think we had like 4 hours to respond to this brief and actually make a model out of the different objects that we were given. I think it was like 3 hours or something. And then there was different professionals that came around and obviously gave feedback and got to know us, and so we could talk to them about other things, or we could talk to them about what we were doing. But it was a big, kind of competition. And then the next night there was an actual exhibition of what everyone had come up with, and there was some really cool stuff. But yeah, and so it just basically gives people an opportunity, or you guys an opportunity to meet different professionals in these kind of more relaxed, collaborative environments. So all I wanted to do was let everybody know that we're really trying to bring this over to Perth. When I first got here, I was trying to look it up and it wasn't here at all, and so I was like, oh, this is really something that I feel like is missing. And because it is difficult to get work over here in Perth, it is a lot about who you know, and the job, and obviously the industry, it's a difficult industry to get into sometimes. And so I just wanted to put the word out there, and over hopefully the next few months we'll get something up and running, and this will be through Gillian and Simon as well, because obviously they're they work at uni, so just keep your ears out for that, but we'll definitely be in contact. And I just wanted to put that out there. Can I pass over to Gillian?
Before you leave, I want to mention about design services.
Oh, that's a great opportunity. Yeah.
I'm not sure if anyone has put in for a student design award or anything for the DIA awards this year, but it is on the 3rd of December, sorry. And from the 1st to the 3rd, there's the Design Circus. And if you haven't heard about it, it's an event curated by Pepe. He curates the Design Circus in Europe. I don't know. He's from Valencia. And he's had it over here, I think, for the last couple of years. But this year we're collaborating with the Design Circus to bring the DIA awards. And so for over those 3 days, there's different events. I think Joshi Levian are doing a talk on the Tuesday evening. There's a really great Potter ceramicist on one of the evenings. So basically, yeah, if you head to the website, I think it's thedesigncircus.com.au, or even Mobilia. They're a furniture supplier in Claremont. They work with Pepe very closely. So, and the link will be to their website from there. So it's definitely worth checking out. It will be a very inspiring event. So, and there's lots and lots and lots of activities that you can get involved in.
The head hat.
Oh, the head hat competition. Yeah, has that closed? I don't know if that's closed. Has anyone entered for the head hat competition? Awesome. So, I don't know, good luck. I haven't entered. I wanted to enter, but I'm too busy to do that at the moment. But no, Sam walked around the uni the other day with his iPhone. He had us on FaceTime and he showed us all the student. He was just walking past and there's all the student entrance, and we're like, wow, these students have done some really cool stuff. So if you haven't entered, I think you can still enter. I think the cut-off date is the 23rd of October. You just have to double check once again on the Mobilia website or on the Design Circus website. But the head hat is a pendant light, and the competition is to design a shade for that light, and all the criteria on the website under competition. So that's another great, and the prize, I'm not sure what the actual student prize is for that, off the top of my head.
It's a good prize.
I can't remember.